And COVID is back in the news with the entry of Omicron. I'm Nidhi Kumar and welcome to Science Time. In this episode of Science Time, let's explore the new variant of COVID-19, Omicron, that has caught the attention of the scientific community. Well, barely a week has elapsed since scientists in Botswana and South Africa altered the world to a fast-spreading SARS-CoV-2 variant, now known as Omicron. Researchers worldwide are racing to understand the threat that the new variant, now confirmed in more than 20 countries, poses to the world. Yet, it might take scientists weeks to paint a more complete picture of Omicron and to gain an understanding of its transmissibility and severity, as well as its potential to evade vaccines and cause reinfections. How fast is Omicron spreading? Omicron's rapid rise in South Africa is what worries researchers most because it suggests the variant could spark explosive increases in COVID-19 cases elsewhere. On 1st of December, South Africa recorded 8,561 cases, up from the 3,402 reported on 26 November and several hundred per day in mid-November, with much of the growth occurring in Gauteng province, home to Johannesburg. Epidemiologists measure an epidemic's growth using R, the average, the number of new cases spawned by each infection. In late November, South Africa's National Institute for Communicable Diseases in Johannesburg determined that R was above 2 in Gauteng. Gauteng's R value was well below 1 in September, when Delta was the predominant variant and cases were falling, suggesting that Omicron has the potential to spread much faster and infect vastly more people than Delta. Although genome sequencing is needed to confirm Omicron cases, some PCR tests can pick up a hallmark of the variant that distinguishes it from Delta. Can Omicron overcome immunity from vaccines for infection? The variant's swift rise in South Africa hints that it has some capacity to evade immunity. Around 1/4 of South Africans is fully vaccinated, and it's likely that a large fraction of the population was infected with SARS-CoV-2 in earlier waves based on heightened death rates since the start of the pandemic. In this context, Omicron's success in southern Africa might be due largely to its capacity to infect people who recovered from COVID-19 caused by Delta and other variants, as well as those who've been vaccinated. And previous studies of Omicron spike mutations, particularly in the region that recognizes its receptors on human cells, suggest that the variant will blunt the potency of neutralizing antibodies. And how will vaccines fare against Omicron? If Omicron can dodge neutralizing antibodies, it does not mean that immune responses triggered by vaccination and prior infection will offer no protection against the variant. Immunity studies suggest that modest levels of neutralizing antibodies may protect people from severe forms of COVID-19. Other aspects of the immune system, particularly T cells, may be less affected by Omicron's mutations than are antibody responses. Researchers in South Africa plan to measure the activity of T cells and another immune player called natural killer cells, which might be especially important for protection against severe COVID-19. And will current boosters improve protection against Omicron? The threat of Omicron has prompted some countries such as the United Kingdom to accelerate and broaden the rollout of COVID vaccine booster doses, but it's not yet clear how effective these doses will be against the variant. Does Omicron cause milder or more severe disease than previous variants? Early reports linked Omicron with mild disease, raising hopes that the variant might be less severe than some of its predecessors. A major challenge when assessing a variant's severity is how to control for the many confounding variables that can influence the course of the disease, particularly when outbreaks are geographically localized. For example, reports of mild disease from Omicron infection in South Africa could reflect the fact that the country has a relatively young population, many of whom have already been exposed to SARS-CoV-2. Researchers will be looking for data on Omicron infections in other countries. This geographical spread and a larger sample size as cases accrue will give researchers a better idea of how the early reports of the mild disease might be. Omicron in India. Several cases of the Omicron variant of coronavirus have sprung up in India in several states like Karnataka, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and Delhi. Currently, India's tally stands at 23. Scientists at the Indian Council of Medical Research, National Institute of Virology, have initiated efforts to isolate and grow the Omicron strain of the novel coronavirus from the Dombivli man's throat nasal swab sample inside its high-end biosafety laboratory in Pune. The scientific exercise will answer two critical questions. Can this variant impact the efficacy of Covishield and Covaxin? And will it outfight existing antibodies in those who've had COVID illness from old strains? We can hope our great scientists will soon find a solution to this emerging variant. Till then, all of us can get vaccinated and follow COVID appropriate behavior to keep the virus away. Thank you for watching.